Welcome to Impact Mindset. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and professionals, bringing you the best ideas and people to help grow your startup in today's marketplace. Each week, we deliver interviews, tips, and tools to inspire, train, and support you in your entrepreneurship journey. I'm your host, Bruno Fon. Today with me is Mr. Kemo Camara. Camara is a social entrepreneur, economist, and community organizer. Over the last 20 years, he has founded startups, built non-profit organizations, and played various leadership roles in community organizations. He is a strong believer in diversity and inclusion and a big advocate of representation. He enjoys bringing people together from diverse backgrounds to work together towards common goals. He is the founder and CEO at Omek, an organization with the mission to unlock and share the talent, voices, and energy of the African Diaspora. He is also co-founder Guinea Dental, a dental practice co-founded with his brothers in Guinea. Camara is with me today to share his perspectives on various pathways to African diaspora engagement, especially as professionals and entrepreneurs. So welcome to Impact Mindset, Camara.
Thank you for having me, man. That's quite an introduction. I was like, man, I need to meet that guy.
and then you just discover it's you, actually.
Yeah, I was like, wait, he's saying my name. Okay, that's interesting. No, thank you. That's cool. It sounds like I did so much already. No.
Yeah, I've read your story, of course, and I know you're born in Guinea, studied and lived in the United States, Germany, and currently living and working in the Netherlands. I know that I have left a huge gap in that. So could you tell us your story?
All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's see. It would always be interesting to understand how your environment, where you came from, Guinea, and how your environment and your journey shaped your passion. And I can hear when you speak, I can hear your passion in bringing people together and in talking about diversity and inclusion. I was just wondering how your background and your educational career actually shaped your mission today.
So basically, like you say, I was born in Guinea. That's in West Africa. So for those who don't know, I was born within, in the Western standard, like a big family, because we have older 8 siblings, including my plus me will be 9 from one mom, one dad. So kudos to them, my parents, amazing people. So yeah, I was born in a big family, but like even with this 9 siblings, I've never felt my whole entire life living with my parents. Never felt like, and we never had less than 20 people living in the compound.
Wow, quite a big.
Yeah, even like, so my parents were like, these people were like basically literally raised the whole village. That kind of term. They had 9 kids themselves, but they raised their nieces, like all these brothers, my mom's like side, my dad's side, like the brothers send their kids to them to put them in school. So we always have like, the people, and then they had a lot of the time like aunties coming to visit, like uncles coming to visit. And then we also had friends from school that would come in and stay with us. And then before you know, it's 6 months or a year, they're part of the family. Like they just moved. So you have this like, man, this big compound, and it has like people there. Like at any given time, I think at the peak, we will have like between 50 and 60 people living at one time. Like I remember growing up, like literally that kind of, places, like this is a community, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes like my friends who come to visit and will be having a lunch, or people will be cooking. It's like, is there a celebration here? It's like, no, what are you talking about? This is just our lunchtime. So I grew up in that environment, and I always saw my parents not only doing that within, their family, within their compound, but like they leverage their professional success, right, to really build a community, really like, in the village association, people from like the same places, and then build the community and create like a really structured, organized, because they were like professional, intellectual, educated people. So they use that technique, that network, that leadership, and then every technical aspect experience that they had to really come to the community and build a community. We saw that happening. So you have like the social aspect or professional aspect. So for instance, some of the things that they did is to create an NGO and then leverage that NGO and then get some fundings and then start building school, hospitals, community centers in their village, and then support all the villages around to the same thing. So that's the environment I grew up in. So that's what I know. Like, you are part of a bigger system. You are part of like a community. You are part of like a places where everybody knows what to do, how to support each other. Everybody have a role and responsibility. So this like a beautiful functioning human technology that I grew up in. And so 20 years ago, when I got to the university, I decided to go to the United States and then pursue my education there. And then I wanted to, the reason that I left, it was really simple. I had this very linear thinking, this linear vision, clear vision. I'm going to go to the US and get the best education, go to the best school, work at the best company, get the best experience I can, and maybe one day come back. No, not maybe, just come back one day and then be sitting at the table with people that come from the, from outside the country, whether they work for the IMF or like any big institution. Then we went to the same school, we went to have the same education, then you cannot intimidate me. So I wanted to be on the same level. So that was my linear thinking. And so, that's my upbringing from Guinea, the environment, the community, the aspect that I had. And I just moved. That's how I moved to the US to do that.
How did you find expression of the whole environment where, how you experienced it, the community, what you describe as the human technology, part of the aspects on how the community is supported and built? How did you find its expression in the United States within the African community?
Yeah, I like that question, to be honest, because growing up in Guinea. So you come to the US. I think when I first moved there, I was so focused and so excited. Like, I'm going to the US. I have this American dream, right?
Right.
So, and I was young. I have this linear thinking, like just a clear vision. So I'm there. I'm like, oh man, sky is the limit. So I was really excited. So the idea of a community was just not even under my radar. It was just about me. It's about me succeeding. It's about me making a way. So initially when I was there, it was all about that. How do you adjust? How do you get in the system, and how do you succeed? And on top of that, in my vision, right, in that dream, there was a lot of things that I missed in the equation because I came from Guinea, which is a French colony. So technically we speak French because of like the colonization. So I go to the US, I don't speak English, I only spoke French. So then you need to learn English, right? And then also I didn't realize that you have to pay for education in US. It's really expensive. And so like those things, or you have to pay for your house, your apartment. You're not living with your parents anymore, right? So you have to work. So you have to do all this, and you have to like get your paper. You have to get this. You have to learn how to navigate the system. And so, all that things, like now, how do you overcome those challenges that you didn't actually plan for it before? So that gets you like really put your head down and just make it happen, just do it. And so I wasn't so much involved in the community, but it was when then I got done to school and then I started working, and I was now in the privileged position to give back. And that's what I really started getting involved in community engagement, like community association, and then like Guinean association, African, like you name it, whether it's like religious, like anything that just brought people together and then help people to get come together and succeed. Like basically like I've seen happen. So that was a big part of me. But the challenge or the biggest difference is that back home, it's like a same family, same people coming together, like this community. And then when you go to the US, then you have like, it's an even like in the bigger picture. So like people from like same country, maybe Guinean association, but you have like from different tribe or from different, background and all this, or you have like African association. So like from different countries, so like a really this next level, right? Right. And so bringing, but at the same time, so we all people. So you have like that basic foundation of like how you deal with people and how you interact with people that was there. But like now it's like at the next level, how do you apply it within that next level? And then like intellectual differences is there. Some people are educated and then you have like a deal with another group, like with non-educated. So like there was like all this dynamic. So it was like really totally, in the same in the way where it's like all African, big attached to, we have the same background coming from the same country or same history, same tradition, but and then on the other hand, like extremely different, because they have a different vision, different dream, different everything. So
right. And so you can see that your heart is sort of not necessarily a change of heart, but you, despite the fact that you came from a collective environment and you sort of moved into an environment where you were forced into individualism, you didn't really lose your sense of community at all.
Yeah, no, that's a good, you're totally right. I think, I don't know if I feel lucky or not, but it's just because I never even thought about that. It's just never even crossed my radar because I guess the way I was brought, it's just a part of my, I don't know if that's the thing, like, but it was, I still say like it's a part of my DNA. Like it never crossed my mind. Like when I first came in, it was just about me succeeding, right? As soon as I started working, as soon as I started having a free time, as soon as I started having that luxury, I just automatically got attracted, got drawn into like, hey, I want to volunteer, I want to help. And then that volunteering turned into like a leadership role, like it turned into more leadership because I was learning all this experience from work and bringing back to the community. I was like, man, like this community have like such a massive potential. And I think, guess what, where that come from? Back home, because I saw my parents like leveraging that thing and then doing something that was like no one would even imagine, like community there is like a social thing. But like, how do you, organize at that time? I'm talking about like a 25 years ago, right? How do you, say, hey, we all intellectual, educated, let's create a nonprofit organization and then leverage our position and our role in the government or like whatever, like professional environment industry we are in, leverage that. There's access to like build something. And for me, that was like a really transformational. And so that stays something when I said, well, if I'm learning this strategy, you have to move like a place, an organization from any point A to a point B. Maybe you can apply that in the community. So I was going always in that mindset. But at the same time, though, I was connected with like a lot of friends from school or like things like that. They were like, no, this community thing has like there's too much noises and it's like they get into your business. Like, not everybody wanted to do that.
Yeah, there is always the sense of not necessarily loss in belonging to an organization, but you always have the conflict of people who have been hurt by others within the community. They think that, well, I don't want to deal with others within the community. I prefer to do things on my own. And that is sort of accentuated by the sense of individualism in the Western culture. And did you find that sort of resistance to your appeal in being part of community so endemic?
Yeah, I saw that. I guess like that's what I was saying. Like I saw a lot of even myself when I spent over 15, like almost 20 years now. I've been like in community engagement from like all aspects, professional to social, to religious, to sport, like every single angle, age group. So I've seen a lot of this. Like at one point, like when I was organizing communities, and then I will see a lot of friends from school, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you guys we all gone to like this really amazing school and working like in the corporate, like have this privilege. Imagine if we were to come together and then like what we can do, you know, how we can open door to other people, how we can support." But the answer is like, no, it's hard dealing with people. I don't want to like, they will be all over your business. So there was like a lot of this rejection. But for me, that's like, all right, we can be friends. We can stay in our own lane. This is what I do. This is what I love doing. And I love supporting. So that never affected me. And then it's like, sometimes I just didn't even, these people, maybe we didn't have the same upbringing. And so I didn't, you know, blame them or anything like that. And it's like, all right, we can stay friends, we do our thing. But for me, it was like the more I was learning from the corporate side, the more I was like bringing to the community. And I almost at one point became a bridge between like a corporate world, like a technical aspect there, understanding that, and then bringing that to the community world, and then like taking that collective social human aspect from the community to like in my corporate space. So I was coming, and then people within the corporate space is like, it's so individualistic, they're so competitive, and it's so like, I was like, no, guys, like we are part of the team. And that was like really helping me there too, like in the leadership position, that concept of team, that concept of working together, that concept of like collective power, and then not competing with each other within the team. So I was always able to like become that bridge. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't always easy, and it's still not easy. But for me, luckily, it was amazing. It's a blessing, really, that I experienced that for many years. And so when when it came down to create Omek, it just like I had so much experience, and then I just like came up with a strategy to say like, how do you overcome all these challenges? So we can talk about that when we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was wondering, you were mentioning how your experience in the corporate space sort of led to creating the environment within the community, within the diaspora space, more or less. How effective have you seen that sort of well, I don't want to say integration, but more or less how your experience in the corporate space enhanced your work within the community?
I think personally, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I think for me, it just started naturally, right? It just started naturally. I know this, I have learned this, and then I'm just in the community when I come in, and I'm in the leadership position. And I think like, hey, what exactly do we want to do? Let's articulate that. Once we have that, and where are we right now compared to that goal? And then how do we get there? Like when, the timeline, just a basic strategy, right? And you start having that communication. Usually like in the social setting, people just don't, just talk, and then it's like, it's not that way. But when you start breaking it down that way, it start becoming really simple. And then you feel like, oh, this is simple, but like it has so much impact within this community. And then so it started like a little by little seeing like, oh man, I have a voice here and I have something that I can contribute. And then it started becoming more role for leadership. So basically like it's something that's extremely needed within this community space, because people come in there based on their passion for something and passion for coming together, or like just want to be social and want to. So not think through, or like not everybody have like the same opportunity or like the same social or professional level and a skill and understanding. And so like when you have this expertise and you can come in there and figure out how to contribute, that's a huge need. That's a huge need there, like especially like this NGO, community association, or like in this thing. And so for me, I think it's extremely, extremely helpful. But on the flip side, people usually think like, oh, I'm a professional. I don't have the time to deal with this. I don't have the time to deal with these noises and in the community. But the flip side is like, I wasn't only helping, like I was providing that technical skill, but I was also learning. from these people to being humble, to support in order, to help in order, and the idea of like coming together and just being there for each other. And how does that work? So I was able also that human aspect to take that back to work. And so the corporate environment also benefit from that, because in the corporate setting, it becomes social, individualistic, social, cultural dependent. So competitive, like it's about me, how do I succeed? Versus how do I support other people to succeed, which should ultimately say more about me, and I will succeed as well by helping others.
Yeah, it's more or less together. You solve a problem when you bring your hands together, when you put in your effort together, when you pull in your resources and skills together. You actually create an environment where everyone within the community gain.
Yes.
Rather than just saying that it is just my skill, I would have to just deal with that myself in a very selfish kind of way.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've realized working and knowing non-profit organizations or community organizations is usually the lack of professionalism, or rather the absence of the desire to do things professionally. And is that something that you noticed working with other organizations, that you really had to sort of bring that in your very unique way, in terms of how do I let them understand that, say, simple things like being on time for an appointment, for example, that sort of thing is important? Because one of the things and realizations is that even those in the corporate sector, once they get involved with non-profit organization, seems more or less to relax their standards. Has this been your observation working with community organizations?
Oh yeah, absolutely, all the time, all the time. And then at one point, you just get frustrated, right? It's like, dude, I learned this in the corporate setting. This is what I'm doing all the time. It works, right? At least it will help us like to get somewhere, to move better than where we are today. Not everybody usually in this setting have like the same professional like skill or expertise or experience, right? It's different. And I give you an example. Like sometimes I will be in this space and then come up like a really this elaborate strategy, and then how to go, move, just reach the goal, and then what are the simple things that we need to do, like like 3, 4, 5 things that I need to do. And you finish explaining all that, and people are like, nope, we are not gonna do that, like bluntly. And then for the simple reason that you just like somehow when you like it's not about what you're saying, but the way you're saying it, or the way you're providing it. And so if people are in the group, sometimes they feel like you're putting them down, or you're showing off, or like, you think like you're a big guy or stuff like that. And it just like a kind of create this like a really lack of a reception from their part. And so I think a lot of the time it's like I reflect more on that, and it's like, how do you provide that? How do you meet people on their level, and then just humble, and then communicate this? And I think a lot of the noises within the community is stem from there, because if you're lucky, you work for in a big name, big corporation, big water company or whatever, you feel like a big shot, and you come in there, that kind of create even a complex of inferiority or something. And so there's like all these things to take into account. So for me, like, being in that space, I learned all that. But I think what crystallized it for me, like when I 3 years ago, I did my master's degree in development economics and international study. And during that time, I did actually my thesis about the African diaspora.
That was in Germany, right?
That was in Germany. Yeah, that was in Germany 3 years ago. I did my master about, like on understanding the capital, the social capital, the financial capital, the human capital that the African diaspora had, and how do you tap into that for socio-economic development. It was during that study, that research and talking to people, that I came in, like the realization, basically I found this study on an article written by the Harvard Business School about some how to market the diaspora. So they did this segmentation, psychographic segmentation. So I leveraged that study and then just like how do you mirror that to like the African diaspora community. So I segmented the community into 4 group based now on the geographical profile that we do today, saying like, oh, I'm an African descent from Guinea, I'm an African descent from Nigeria, I'm an African descent from African, you know, like as an African American, an African descent of Caribbean, like that geographical space. But like, what if you were to divide people, or to segment people based on the psychographic profile? What that means is that what if we segmented people based on their vision, based on their shared values, based on their, you know, like shared dream, right? So now because we both from like the same country or have this continent in common, but do we have the same mindset? Do we have the same vision? Do we have the same passion? Do we have the same way of thinking, right? And so when you do that, then things become, oh my goodness, it just transcends all these noises that we have in the community. So I give you an example. Once I did that study, it just made things so clear and so simple for me. Because I used to go in the community organization and it's like, man, I know this. I know what I'm talking about. It makes sense. Let's use it here. And I talk about it. It creates these noises and you try to overcome the noises. But now you come to the same community, look at it, it's like, all right, most people in this community have a different mindset. What is their mindset? If people have like a social aspect that's the most valuable to them, and so all they want to do, they work all day, all week. On the weekend, they just want to come to a social setting, and whether that's a baby naming ceremony or someone has like like a celebration of happiness that's happening, they just want to be there and celebrate with each other and be part of like this collective space and supporting each other, and just go home and go back to work and provide to their family, right? And then you come in there as a Kemo, man. I'm an entrepreneur. I know I want to change the world. Black Lives Matter, like social injustice, the climate change. We have so much potential. We can change the world. These people don't want to hear that. So we have a different mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Right, indeed.
And so if you put this group together, so it's like, it's never going to work because we don't have the same vision. We don't have the same value. We don't have the same passion. We don't have the same drive. And so basically what I did with that segmentation, I segmented the African community into 4 groups. The first group, I call them the cultural advocate. So these are like the people who moved from the country of origin, whatever that is, whether it's in the continental Africa or like Caribbean, or like you just moved to, let's say, in the Netherlands. You hear they either didn't have a lot of education there or didn't have no education or life, like high school. So they come in here and they work in the factory or blue collar work and just provide for the family. But culturally, they kept that culture. They speak the language really well. They understand the tradition. They still really. So when they go to the like association, like some community association, or the church. I mean, like a wedding or anything like that. All they want to do is be around each other and then just enjoy that time, enjoy that cultural social aspect that's happening. That's all they want, right?
Right.
And so you have the second group that I call the ethnic affirmers. The ethnic affirmers are like, your uncles. They left back home. They were like either doctor or professor. And then like they used to work in the professional level. They're like, oh, I'm going to move to this country and then just to provide better, living for my family. And they come in here for some reason. They couldn't translate their professional skill. And then they would end up having ethnic store or like taxi driver, Uber driver, or like anything, right? But it's still intellectual. Like, so these people are like in their head, even if they've been here for 20 years, they still really keep that tradition, that culture at home. They feel more African or more traditional than people living in their country of origin, right? That those kind of uncle, it's like, and then you have the third group. So the third group basically are like the bicultural. I call them the bicultural. These are the people that's born from those 2, earlier group.
The second generation.
The second generation, right? diaspora. So they are Dutch because they were born here, they grew up here. This is the culture they know, but also grew up from at home. They have an African culture, so they have this dual culture. They have this bicultural. So these people, like usually when they were growing up, we can talk about this like so much to impact there. But basically, when they were growing up, they're like, man, I'm gonna be a Dutch. So because of that, I'm just gonna forget about my African side of it. I want to go to school. I don't want to be bullied. I want to fit in. And then they've been doing that for the whole time. And now they're like in their 30s and the late 20s, and they're in the space where whatever that is, they say they speak the language really well. They have like this good job, and they're like, that's not enough. I want to be part of something that's bigger than myself. Right? I don't want to take any more of this social injustice. I want to create change. I want to be, so those are the people that's like driving like this Black Lives Matter movement. They're driving the social change. They have a totally they have a totally different experience than their parents, right? Now they're reconciling the both culture. They're like, I'm a Dutch, but at the same time I'm African, and it's gonna bridge and it's gonna make it happen, and I'm gonna exist in this space. So this is a different mindset. And so the third one, the fourth one is the group I call the assimilator. These are the group that completely cut themselves off the African heritage, the African community, everything that has to do with that. And completely for them, their success dependent on assimilating within the society they're in. And so, usually this group like completely like have nothing to do. And it has a lot of reasons. Some because for maybe the community association, they got misunderstood, and then they got tired of being there, and just like, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore, and I'm done. Or some have like other challenges, or like they made it so far in their career, like executives, and somewhere they don't have the time, and it's just like more and more completely find themselves isolated. So those are the four group, and then they all have a different mindset, and they all have a different vision. They all have a different value. So if you usually what happened, or in the community, what happened, whether it's the community itself, or it's an international institution or government, everybody says the African diaspora, and then they bucket all these four group into one basic simple group, and then it's like, oh, you are African diaspora, and one policy to you. It never work. It never gonna work.
And that really allows for stereotyping, huh?
What?
And that allows for stereotyping as well. When
it allows for everything.
Yeah.
It allows for. So basically, think about it. If you look at the Dutch society, on most places, if you talk about African diaspora or migrant, what do they think? They automatically don't even see the bicultural. It doesn't matter if you're bicultural or your assimilator, which is like CEO or like an executive and somewhere like really well off. You were born here, you understand everything, but they see you as like someone who's working at the farm, someone who like got here through the boats. So like it's just like it opened the door for that. But if you bring it in, if you go in the like in the space in the community, then you have this group that have totally different mindset. And so for us, I think with Omek, really understanding that, it just opened the door. So for me now, how does that work? How do you apply that? Right. Understanding, having that knowledge. When I go to a community association, I don't go there like with my bicultural mindset. No, I go there with the social aspect in my social mindset. So I go there and it's like, this is about social, this is about enjoying each other, it's nothing about changing the world. It's about each other here, supporting each other, respecting each other, meeting people where they are and respecting them. I'm telling you, once I started doing that, it's like a night and day. People start respecting you. People start listening to you. Because you respecting them, you are meeting them where they are. You are listening to them. And then more than that, you are appreciating them, because I know the cultural advocate, they understand the African culture way more than I do. And so if I can celebrate them, I can learn more about the African culture. Then they can actually, how do we put them on the pedestal to say like, man, like you guys still guarding this culture. We need African culture. We are like, sometimes don't even speak the language properly or don't understand all the nuances. You guys do, then we need to celebrate you. And so once you start doing that, guess what's going to happen? They're going to respect you, and they're going to start listening to you, and life will start becoming easier. And so when you go to like the ethnic affirmer, right? You understand how their mind works. You understand what they're passionate about. You understand what drives them. And then you meet them there. And guess what? This uncle is going to become your best friend now, because he's going to start, oh man, you're respecting me, you understand me. And so there's noises that usually happen. You're thinking that's backward, or like, oh, they don't understand. And then no. That just, completely goes away. And that, for me, I think this is the key. It's so important, like to start like really creating this awareness within the community, just to help us go forward. So
the ethnographic segmentation is absolutely useful way of really looking at it. And I'm just looking at it now. I realize that there is something I describe as social commonalities.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly the approach that was really taken for you to sort of segment the group into four. My initial thought always before was segmenting, and it's also the mistake that I think most of us make, is segmenting it only to two of the groups that we're thinking, only in terms of the first generation, which in your segmentation is the cultural advocates. My thinking always was, well,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was thinking that usually in the past, in my thought, I really love your segmentation. And it sort of also corrects my thinking in terms of what I was always looking at in the context of sort of segmenting the diaspora community, where it was you had the first generation, those that were basically your cultural advocates, and then you had those that the current generation, that you would say that they're these children of the first generation.
Yes.
And I think that is quite a limited way of looking at it. I would say,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what people have been looking at it, especially within the community, right? You have the second generation, which is like the younger generation, they're here, and then the first generation. But within the first generation, like the mindset is not the same, right? So you have the cultural advocate, and then you have like the ethnic affirmer. Like a lot of these guys like feel like, man, I was a doctor back home. And then they're looking at the other groups like, you guys, you are not even educated. So like their mindset is even not the same level, right? And so even within this group, like the first generation, like people mindset where they are. So if they understand where each of us are, what each of us is, and what value, like what is more important to them, then they start meeting each other there versus, versus fighting. They start respecting each other. They start moving forward. Right. And even if you take like a bicultural, right, the second generation that we call, even within that, like the mind, like having this psychographic, like, do we see that you and I are an entrepreneur, right? We know like what we want to succeed. We want to make these things happen. We speak the same language. Being an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter your geographical profile. That isn't what matters. Like, dude, you and I, people of African descent, we're entrepreneur. We're trying to like make these things happen. If I need something, I know when I come to you and then complain, you understand it. So we want to support each other. We want to go forward. So we speak the same language. We have the same vision, right? And so it becomes easier. Like now the things that differentiate us, that people usually fight, that becomes something important. It becomes a plus. It becomes a positive versus a negative.
Correct. That's what the social commonality aspect I mentioned is really a key aspect, that you have a common language that you can actually identify with someone as part of the same community, even though at the same time there is uniqueness in each.
Yes.
But there is a commonality as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that part is like extremely important. And for me, that's the key for Omek to figure out how do you transcend the noises within the community and then really build this dream and just unlocking that potential, that capital that we have within the community, that drive that we have within the community to do something bigger than ourselves. So that's right there. I just like give you my life story and then like why I felt like, okay, not only the experience of working within the diaspora, African diaspora community engagement, community building for, like almost all my life, if you really account to like my experience back home, and understanding those noises, and then how you overcome those noises, how you transcend those noises to really to get to the core and then make things happen. And so that's understanding all that, having all this, in front of me and doing my research as part of my thesis and having that data in front of me. And I'm like, man, I have to do something with this.
Right.
I have to do something with this. And that's where the whole concept of Omek was born.
How does your values and your mission find expression in Omek in the context of the practical application, the events, and every other activity that you've had since? How does that find expression within the organization?
It's everything. That's basically like the whole value of Omek is based on that. It's the same, because the idea of Omek, the basic idea, is during like my personal experience. I know I've been this whole thing, right, and being community organizing, community building, and then seeing all these challenges, and then doing this academic study, and then having all this data as a part of this discussion and research, because I talked to over 200, like a survey, and then talked to over 200 people in the US, in Germany, in France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands here, all professional for African descent from across, right? What I found out is like, one, there's so many successful individual within the community. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. But because the individual, you don't hear about them, you don't see them, and you don't feel their impact.
Correct.
And so I find myself in this unique position where I'm like, oh my God, I see these people and I talk to them, and it's the same thing. Everybody's like expressing the same thing. And so the value for me, Omek is always been the same value that I've always had. If we find a space, like create a space where I'm not the only one, like talking to all these people. Let's create a space where we remove this black box that we live in today, where we all can find each other, and we all can realize like the sheer number of successful, talented, driven people within the diaspora. So Omek is like really, let's create that space first where we can see each other, where we make a connection extremely simple. Once we do that, once we start talking, once we start, when you start seeing each other, then you start talking. Once you start talking, then you start building trust, then you start engaging with each other, then you start collaborating. And so once you remove that, that's the first step. Then like, how do we start collaborating? How do we leverage, harness this unique and talent that we have to really be part of something that's bigger than ourselves and make a bigger impact? So the value is always the same. The value is, how do you contribute in the community? How do you contribute in this society? How do you become an asset in this society? And then realizing that the best way to do that is to do it collectively and do it together. And the beautiful thing is, like talking to all these people, I realized that everybody wants the same thing. Then now, what is the missing part? What is the missing part in the equation? We all want to do this. Individually, actually, we all trying to do it. And then why haven't we done it? And so for me, having because of that experience, because of my experience, and because of that that research, that psychographic profile segmentation that I had, I'm like, this is the key. This is really the key. Like everybody in this bucket, and then trying to go, let's do it differently. Like, so Omek, I'm focusing on one group within this full segmented group, the bicultural. Those are the key. When you're able to bring them together and it start working, then it wrap off to the ethnic affirmers, like the uncles, right? The intellectual, they already understand it. And then what's going to happen? The next group that's going to come in is those assimilators, because these are like really highly successful that cut themselves out because of they felt like it's just a waste of time. But now they're seeing something that's working. And so you start bringing in this group. So the bicultural are really the key to solving this problem. So like the equation is always been here. The missing pieces be like, how do we do it? We don't trust each other. We don't know how to collaborate. We don't know, all this negative thing, all these noises that people have been complaining about, and then it's been a problem. So now once you're able to remove that, then it happens. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question, but yes.
No, it's absolutely useful, because as you are speaking, I'm wondering, where do I actually belong? And I think that I find myself as an assimilator, quite unfortunately. Not necessarily a bicultural. I mean, in your psychographic segmentation.
No, I like it how you diagnose yourself, because that always happen every time I have this. I explain these people like, where do I fit in this group? Like,
isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's a mindset, right? So you kind of like realize, what's the mindset? Where do I? That's really important. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, and one thing that I do know that and realize that is my skepticism of the effectiveness of diaspora organization. I mean, speaking with you and speaking with others who have had a different approach to how it works, I of course appreciate the importance of it. That sort of then takes us out. And of course, I know that you have, in your research, of course, you've discovered that is the mindset of the assimilators, who are sort of skeptical of the effectiveness, not the usefulness, the effectiveness of our community organizations and associations, and finding new ways of, well, you know what, I'm discouraged by what is going on in the organization. I prefer to want to focus on my career and the profession.
Yes.
How do you deal sometimes with this skepticism?
I mean, I think with this research, I really don't call it skepticism.
All right.
Right. And I think it completely changed my mindset, my approach. And then think about it. Like, I had done this for 15 years, like living in the US, over 15 years, for 20 years since I left Guinea. Right. And so I think with this research, it's because I have done this. I have like been frustrated. I have like felt like wasting time. But I've like also felt like, just being part of it. I've been doing it. So when I came across this, I'm like, when you say that, I'm like, no, it's not a skepticism. You come in the community, you have tried to move forward. People are not listening. It's not working. Actually, in fact, like most of the time, you kind of end up creating enemies within the community, right? Right. And it's like, man, I don't have a time for this. And so a lot of the people, it's not skepticism. It's like, no, this is not working. And it's not, I've tried, but I don't even have a time to deal with this.
Yeah.
But guess what happened? Let's say you find a professional group, right? That's working exactly the way you want it. That's meeting the standard that you set. What are you going to do? When you be the first one to jump in there and support and help and do whatever you can?
Yes.
Exactly. And so that's the mindset. And so like assimilator is now, I don't even like that term, but like, because it sounds more like it has a negative connotation, but like that's a good reason. So once you understand that mindset, and then you say like, well, if I'm going to build Omek, let's build a most professional space that can rival any other Western professional networking environment. But at the same time, with the strong concept of community, collective, supporting each other to grow individually and collectively. If you have that, assimilator will be the first one to come in and say like, this is what I've been asking the whole time and no one was listening to me. What can I do to help? I'm an executive in here. I'm an African at the end of the day. I've never, like, I always embrace it, but I know the community, I don't want to deal with it. But now what are you guys doing? It's a high quality, it's everything. Who can I help? How can I help? They will be the first one to open that door.
Oh, that definitely reflects exactly. That definitely reflects the mindset I had when the first event. I didn't attend the first event, but when my colleague told me about it, I said, "Well, this is actually something that I would support." Exactly what he said. in terms of, okay, this is something that I think I would support, this kind of an initiative.
Yeah.
Because then it's really in that direction. It completely explains what that specific segment thinks. And I think you're absolutely correct about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think for me, like I said, this segmentation is key. And it just gave me so much energy, and it's just like, it need to create more awareness. Like it need to, I think for me, that's what I want to be on this journey, like really like creating this awareness for people to understand this, like this is the solution to going forward. And so like even the term like a skepticism, like, no, it's a positive, like assimilators are like amazing people. They're like a successful. These are the people that's going to make the community go forward, because a lot of them are successful in what they do because they've been focusing on their career and getting there. And then they know how hard it got for them to get there. So if you understand that mindset, then you don't blame them. And but like a lot of people in the community, what do they say? Like, who you think you are? You think you're better than us? And then that just creates something different. So for me, like, yeah, I think understanding this, it just makes life so much easier, man. So yeah, I'm glad you see it that way. So that's really the solution. I think that's the way forward. And I know friends of mine who are in that space. I know people from even my family, like that, not direct family, but like a cousin that I interview. They're completely like, man, listen, when I came to this country, I saw all these opportunities that we can do. Every time I go to the community space and I talk to these people, they don't get it. And then I haven't been in the community for 20 years. But I know these guys are amazing. Like, they will help me at the heartbeat to open any door. So I'm like, man, I need to build a space for people like this to feel comfortable and come in. They want to help. They desperately want to help. And the fact that they're cutting themselves is because they just want to help, but they don't see. And I think that's not the only, that's that group. Imagine we can talk about all these three group, or the four group, the bicultural understanding, really having this deep understanding of each group. This is how we move forward. And I think for me, that's the key for Omek. That's the key. That's something like really not many people have it, and we think like that's what we're leveraging to create a solution forward, to create a way forward.
It is such a useful tool, the psychographic segmentation. I'm actually wondering whether this is something even policymakers within the environments you've worked with, whether or not it's in the Netherlands or even Germany or the US. Is it something you've had conversation with policymakers to look at how current policies dealing with migration, integration, and issues on diaspora? Is that something that the policy environment is interested in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I haven't directly started yet, but I think we, like with Omek, once we start, like I think Omek is the kind of like the idea of like a show me, right? Yeah. And so for me, like I know I've seen these amazing people, so I'm like, if I can start bringing them together and then say like, this is it. Like we've been saying that we have a potential. You guys like, where is it? This is it. And so that's the first step. But at the same time, I think like creating awareness within my own community so they can see this and then start happening. After that, then we can start going to the policy people, and then, or they can even start coming to us and then start explaining. And not too long ago, I wrote an article about this one, like someone who's a member of Omek, I would say, is a writer, and so he was working on the project. He said, "Hey, Kemo, can you write an article about this segmentation and Omek way of like engaging diaspora?" So I wrote about this, and it's like, this is where policymakers have been getting it wrong. And so I think it's completely, there's such a big need for the policy space to rethink the way they engage the community, to rethink the way they get involved. And I think it's just amazing, because the way they're doing like this geographical profile that they're doing is never gonna work. It hasn't worked the past, I don't know how long migration has been happening here. Migration policy the past 60 years, and it won't work the next 60 years. It won't. So yeah, there's a need, and it's gonna start happening. So that article, was basically put together by a magazine here to like present it to the Dutch policymaker to have that. So yeah, I think we're gonna get there. We're gonna have this conversation with the policymaker to say like, you can keep doing what you're doing. It's not gonna work. I know for 1,000% it won't. Or you can adapt the path that we're doing, and then you can partner with us and collaborate with us and figure out how we, this is a new way forward. This is a change happening, right? And this is where we are right now. Think about it. Think about the biculturals. Then you put the generation on it, right? Their mindset is only going to keep changing, and it's just going to be totally different where it is right now to 5 years from now. And so how are you going to keep doing the same policy, old policy to them? It's not going to work.
Yeah, or seeking to have the cultural advocates be similar to the biculturals, which is simply impossible.
No, it's just not. So yeah, we get there. We get there. For me, I really that's what I'm thinking about. Like as an entrepreneur, when we build this ecosystem, when we build this space, when we build this platform, and it start working, like a year from now, 2 years from now, we start getting there, then we can go to anyone to say like, here is what we can bring to the table, right? And so you just don't want to be a talk. It's like, here's what we can bring to the table. Here's a change. We are creating the change that we want to see. It's not a talk. We do exist. These people exist. These people want change. You personally want to change. That's why we're having this conversation, right? And thousands of other people out there want change. Let's figure out how we come together and solve that equation of like, how do we work together to unlock this talent that we have? And once we start doing that, I like, it'll just be like one day the policy makers start coming and say like, hey, how do we make this happen? And we say, this is how you make it happen. And let's go. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. And one way that takes fine expression, the idea of really demonstrating the effectiveness and the impact of the work of Omek is once you see joint initiatives and collaborative initiatives between members or those who are part of the network, let's say, because one of the things that is absent in the diaspora community is really looking at joint initiatives between migrants.
Yes.
In other words, do we have a joint fund where you can put together an investment fund, for example, where you're able to have a pool where you can get investments for doing a collaborative project, a partnership, and those sort of things, initiatives. I'm sure once practical results like that start emerging from the Omek community, that also gives a sense that this method really works, and it does work.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's where the hard part lies. Like I think dealing with the external part is the easier part, because once they start seeing it work, for them it's just like, okay, this work. The old way doesn't work. They will listen to you, but show me first, right? Show me it work. And for once, I think for Omek, like, we all know this. We all know like this. I mean, at work we've seen it. Like, but like, how do you create that joint fund? How do you create this bigger picture vision? You need to start small first. You need to have this kind of conversation. You need to have this kind of mindset and coming together. You need to build the trust in the space. And then we're like, oh yeah, how about now that we done a couple of things together, now that we start trusting each other, how about we go this way? And then how about we, like people start coming, because everybody know, like we have the talented people in this space, whether it's like a social media trendsetter, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's like in the banking, you name it, like everywhere. But once they start realizing, man, this is a space I can trust Bruce, I can trust Kemo, I can trust this person, I can trust John, like I'm in this space, like let's do it, let's do it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned trust. Do you see trust as a key element in really building a community that is diverse and inclusive? Because your work also really deals with diversity and inclusion. Do you see an element of trust in building that sort of environment where people come from different backgrounds? You have them segmented into 4 categories. How far do you see that?
It starts with trust. It ends with trust. Everything is trust, man. The missing piece in the equation is being trust, because everything is there. The talent is there. The capacity is there. The drive is there, right? The desire to be part of something bigger than yourself, to contribute, to support. All the ingredients are there and have always been there. The missing piece here has been trust. Why people say we don't collaborate? Because we don't trust each other. Yeah. Why people say we don't connect or we don't do it? Because we don't trust each other. And so it's been trust. And so now how do you build trust? Right? And so now go back again to the psychographic segmentation. Once you start bringing entrepreneurs together, they speak the same language, right? And then it automatically transcends the noises that they have. And those noises come with lack of trust and create the lack of trust. You and I, you connected with me, I responded, you show me something, I check your website, I was like, this guy's cool, and let's do it. It wasn't like, oh, me spending the whole year trying to figure out if I trust you or not.
Yeah.
Or ask you where you're from. You know what I'm saying? That never happened. All it happened, like, I know you have the same vision as me. We want to create change. We want to make impact in this world, right?
Correct.
And so, like, the trust is automatically there. We're just building on top of it and go. Why? Because we speak the same language. What is that language? We have the same vision. We have the same passion. We have the same value, probably going forward. And so that is the key.
That is, to me, a very key element in what you mentioned in terms of that sort of common language, because in these days and in the kind of rhetoric we have today, especially in the light of the events around Black Lives Matter, and all of the conversations around it, is that people have very different definitions to how they describe diversity and inclusion. And I'm often afraid that we always sort of delineate diversity only in the context of race. How do you define that? How do you see that? And how is that reflected in your thinking in terms of engaging communities you work with?
In like looking at like my community engagement, like, and how do you look at diversity within that context?
Yes.
That's so here's what I think generally about diversity, right? Mm-hmm. Excuse me. I think we are a human being. And as a human being, we were created like any other species, right? We are created different for just specific purposes. So in terms of like the mindset, the way we think, in terms of like our gender, in terms of the color of our skin, in terms of like all this external environment that we did not decide to have it. This is how we were created. And so that's the concept of like diversity. We are different, we are diverse, and that created our species as a human species. That's the overall thinking of it. And so if you study history, and you realize in human history, like those things were not an issue. It was accepted that way as who you are, into like recently, like the human history when slavery, like blah, 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 that happened. And then people, if you know that. And so understanding that, then you kind of know where, at what point we started really saying this race is superior, like the concept of a race came in the picture. And then the concept of superiority of this race came into picture. And where is that? How this all disconnected? Why this happened? Economic aspect, like a capitalism aspect that coming into that picture. So if you understand all that, and then you kind of like, okay, see all that, and then the idea of a diversity start becoming easy for you.
Right.
Right? It start become really clear. But if you don't want to, so if you don't educate yourself to get that bigger picture to understand it, then I think you need to go back and then do that. But once you have that done and you have your open mind, mind open, then it start become really easy. It start become like, hey, we are human, right? Everything else that's been taught, it just doesn't exist. It just it's not it's irrelevant. But unfortunately, we are born into the system. The whole system that's been built has been built on that lie under false pretenses, under economic or whatever that was it. And so we living within that system that we didn't build ourselves. So it depends now how we decide to deal with it. So once you come with that stand, then you start figuring out how the solution. So if I see it that way, you see it that way, then it started becoming like, dude, listen, the color of my skin doesn't mean anything. Somebody just came up with that so they can enrich themselves, or they can colonize, or they can take advantage, like of this group of people, of my people. Right. So that's the backdrop of my thinking about how do I see it. Now we are where we are today. The reality is the reality. People, human nature, if you have the power, you don't want to relinquish it. And so, some people feel like being a white is a privilege, and they're going to stick to that. And you have to kill them to take that away from them. And some people believe like being a black is just like inferiority, since it's being whatever. And so for us, with the way Omek want to transcend that, way Omek want to solve that problem is like diversity, inclusion. Listen, we are people of African descent. We understand our challenges. We're using like the segmentation or whatever, like everything that we understand about who we are as a people. When we come together, we have a solution. We empower ourselves, we uplift ourselves, and we become even a better, more effective member of the society where we live in. We become, we create more possibility for us to become part of the value creation in the society. And so if we have that, if you work in the space where you can come and I can give you a call and say like, hey, can you help me, and then give me a referral or get into that space, and you make it happen, then you opening the door for me. You're making it easy for me to be part of that society and then make more impact. And so we start opening the door, and then we become more involved in the society that we are in, and we start bringing more, contributing more in the cultural, economic aspect. And so that is the key to solving the diversity issue. But today, people are not looking at it that way. And people is like this push relationship where, let's design a program to solve a diversity and inclusion. So you including in a group the people coming in. So as a people of African descent, the representation is lacking from all these companies and then everything. And then the Black Lives Matter happened, and they have the challenges, and they want to hire more Black people or more, brown people or more like diverse people. But like if the concept of Omek exists, the space exists, the community exists, and they're like able to uplift each other, to support each other, to open the door for each other, to make each other better. And if you're working in the company and then you can be part of in this space, let's say you call yourself assimilator, and now you see this brilliant space, and you see all these young talented people that you're mentoring. That's like, I have this drive, and you're like, no, I'm gonna do everything that I can. Then you don't go through the same hustle that I do. Then the company that you work in, you're going to fight to make sure these people get the opportunity to get in there. And so We're not even talking about diversity and inclusion anymore. Like, you have the opportunity to open the door for more people. Forget about diversity and inclusion. And so like, imagine the 10, 20,000 of people had opportunity to do that. And then that became a normal thing within the community, just to do that for each other in every environment. We're not talking anymore about diversity and inclusion. We're talking about community, people supporting each other, people helping each other. That's what's going to happen. Like allies, non-African people are part of this community, and they want to help. All those people that want to help come in, and it becomes even much easier for them. They know where to go and then, provide help. And then you have more people opening more door, and it becoming easy. And for me, this is like, I think it's a way forward.
Right. Because the current definition of diversity and inclusion is quite limited. And I think that you really have a broad, and you're sort of honed into the specific elements of common identities or commonalities, let's put it that way, of individuals, which comes from our basic foundational humanity.
Yes.
And within that context, everyone else can see themselves as part of their community, their human community.
Yes.
Yeah. We have gone nearly an hour, about to get into some lighter questions, but
Okay.
really have to do with, say, what is one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Wow, that's a good one then. Man, I was like, I don't know if there's a one
Or
then.
many,
It's like
or several things that you think you could share with us. Yeah,
it's probably 1,000 then. But
yeah.
when I began my career, one thing I wish I have known, I wish there was a space like Omek
Wow.
that existed. I so wish, because yes, like, where am I today? Maybe I would not have been the person I am today, because I've gone through all these experiences and it made me who I am. But at the same time, like, getting through my career without understanding this, how you navigate the system, and then doing it by yourself. But there's thousands of other people that did that before you, that could easily guide you, that could easily open the door for you and make it much easier for you. And not having that, and I felt like the way I went to the US with that drive, if there was a space like Omek that could have seen like, this is where you need to go, this is where you need to learn the language, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to do A, B, C, D. And then having people that I wanted to go to Harvard, or I wanted to go like any big school, and I know people that already went there and said like A, B, C, D, you need to do to get in here. So imagine, it would have been so much easier to stay on your career path. So, and you would have people, I have no idea what concept of like a mentor or having a coach. Like, those are just recent, concept to me. But like, that's what we need. Like, we need to, like, when someone come from whatever country to study, or they were born here, they need to have other people that they can relate, that they can see like, oh man, like I want to be a pilot. This pilot, this astronaut, this engineer, this doctor that I can relate to, that I can connect with, that they can show me A, B, C,
Kind of a role model. Yeah.
yeah. And I wish there was that space, but because it wasn't, and I'm gonna create it to make sure like the generation that's coming after us can make a fun of us. Like, what? Did you really have to, like, how did you survive? We'll make a life easy for them to succeed.
Right, and I think that also goes to the next question in terms of the kind of challenge that you faced and how you have learned from it. Would you say that has been one of the challenges that you faced in the absence of a kind of a community similar to Omek's, and how you've learned from it?
Can you like rephrase that again, so see if I get it right?
Oh no, yeah. What I'm getting at is that what was one of your greatest challenges that you faced, and how you learned from it. So I'm making the point that probably one of the challenges was not having an organization such as Omek when you were in the US, for example, and in the absence of that, you learned from it. Would that be an accurate way of looking at it?
Yeah. I think in the absence of that, like I went through all these steps that I feel like it made me stronger, and then reflect more, and then just shape who I am today. So that, but like the challenges right now are, the challenges in the past, because I didn't know that, so I had to figure it out. I had to, like, it took me much longer than I could have, right? So those were challenges. And then like now knowing the concept of like a segmentation, the psychographic segmentation, had I known that, I think I would have been much more impactful in my community engagement, community building the past 15, 20 years, right? And not doing all that. So there's knowledge, and I think that was like really, and then right now, those challenges still exist. I mean, it's much easier, but like it's still, I think the biggest challenge is still dealing with a human and with social creature. We're coming with the emotion, and so there's that, and building community. There's that aspect. And the challenges is like being an entrepreneur, right? You have this clear, beautiful vision to change the world, but at the same time, you need so many things. You need the right set of people, the right set of environment, the right set of support system to help you get there, to help you build that. And you also need the resources, the tool, the financing to help you get that. And so those are all, challenges from the social perspective, like the entrepreneurial perspective. But at the same time, the things is so needed. The vision is so clear. The people want to do it. So you kind of like easily sometimes connect with people that want to make that happen and then push it forward and get your message. And so, yeah, you just keep surrounding yourself and then figuring out how it goes, even though these are challenges. But I think it's helpful, my past, overcoming all the obstacles from the first day I got in the US to now, like all these obstacles being like helping me overcome or address the challenges that I'm facing right now.
Yeah, and in every challenge lies the solution.
Yes, absolutely.
What are the issues within the African diaspora community nobody's talking about?
Nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good. Because lack of trust. I mean, people talk about that all the time. So that's one of the biggest issues. Like, but people talk about that. People talk about that all the time. And so I don't know. There's like this. I think lack of trust kind of like you can just tie so many, like the way it manifests itself in so many different ways. And so like people can say like, oh, the differences, the cultural differences, like being an African American and being an African. So there's the challenges there, right? Mm-hmm. Or right. I think you like being here, you probably can understand this better than someone like myself who's been here only 2 years. Like being from Suriname, an African of from Suriname descent, and a contemporary African who just moved from the continent. There's always been that like, do they get along? So there's been all these cultural differences, but it's all the manifestation of a lack of trust. So I think people talk about that, but I don't know what are some of the things. The mental issue, people don't talk about that a lot. Yeah, I honestly don't, because I feel like I've been talking to so many people, and then people tell me a lot of stuff. So I don't know if I can say like that people don't talk about that or not.
Right. Would you in this sort of a question, would you see a difference, say, within the United States and Europe? Would you see a difference in that sort of the kind of subjects that migrants or diaspora have to face? Would you see a difference in that sort of in the United States and in Europe or the Netherlands, for example?
Yeah, I think yeah, someone who's lived in both environment, right? Some of the differences is that living in the US, even though here you see the police brutality and then like it's just so obvious and so brutal and then so inhumane. But living in the US, I feel like people are usually out of the open, and we know racism exists, and then we are going to talk about it. If someone is racist, they're going to be in your face a lot of the times, like, hey, I'm racist and whatever, I don't like you and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of out of the open, and those who are not are not. But I think in the Europe, the biggest difference is like the community, the people in the Europe feel like there's no racism here. And that's what I like, especially in the Netherlands, people usually say like, oh, we don't have a racism. And so like, if you can't solve a problem that you don't even recognize. And so I think that's like that's like a subtle difference, but like, yeah, that's like that difference. People talk about like when these Black Lives Matter first started, people were like, oh, this is American problem. We don't have that in Europe. But no, it's not an American problem. It's like everywhere. There's racism everywhere. So yeah, I think that's it's more talked about in the US versus here. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does make sense, and I think that becomes then relevant for the work of Omek, for example, in really identifying, in working with people, in understanding what brings us together, what is more common with us as communities, no matter where we are at, whether or not there are cultural differences in the United States or wherever in the world, but there is a basic common humanity that brings us together.
Yeah, I think being at Omek, I had to learn all these things. How do you navigate here with the American lens, but like the reality here? And so like I have to explain, so when I first started, I remember like in 2019, late 2019, when I started, when we doing this networking. And so like the Dutch people, the non-African, after like, why you want to create this? Why do you want to, like, like people, like some were like really curious, and then other felt that this is like another form of like segregation or discrimination. Like, why are you not part of the Dutch society? Why do you feel the need of bringing it together? So you had to explain this basic concept to them. Like, isn't that like he's trying to be racist? Like by so like all this explanation, but like usually in the US, it's kind of like African American and African American. And so that concept is not even hiding there. Like, oh, we are Black, we're going to create a Black group and then come together and work together, or like people of African descent, and we're going to figure it out on the go. Like that is not. So there's like that little nuances here. Like, why is it important to come together here? Why is it important? How is that part of the solution in the diversity and inclusion? Are you become part of the problem or become part of the solution? I'm like, no, this is not part of the problem. This is the only way forward. This is the most effective way to solving the diversity and inclusion that everybody's trying to fight. And so, but like, I think, yeah, now it's been much easier than before. But again, I have to keep doing this, awareness campaign within the community itself, but like outside the community, because there's something new that is different.
Right. It's always important to bring in something in looking at the environment and what has been working, what has not been working, and sort of, well, let us try something else and see if this works.
Yes.
And continuing with the old path and getting the same result.
Yes.
Right. I have one last question.
Okay.
What one mindset change that led to your path of self-mastery and success?
I'm sorry, I think the connection was like a little, can you repeat that?
What's the one mindset change that led to your path of self-mastery and success?
The mindset change.
One mindset change. Well, it could have been at some point, or well, during.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of like my personality has who I am, I think that's always the foundation. I always had that. Like that's what we talked about, like the compound, like the family, and then that's always been the center. And so that's always been there. And so it only kept getting better and then improving and better who I am today. But I think I was always involved in the community engagement, community building, and then doing it like the hard way and then the natural way and then all that trial and then all that stuff. But I think for me, honestly, where I am today and then the conviction and then the clarity of the vision that I have and then how that's going to change, I think that has a lot to do with when I did the thesis, when I had the opportunity to talk to so many people and hear all this story, and I really realized like people do exist, like this talent does exist within the community. And I think this psychographic segmentation was like just blew my mind. I was like, man, as a community organizer, if I had this information before, it would have been totally different. And so I think there's two realization, or these two key information came together and like really were able to glue all these pieces of puzzle that's been there. And it's been like really helpful in the sense. But like, yeah, personality has always been the values has always been there. You just keep building and but yeah, I think if something new that came in the past 3 years, I would say that's the most foreign aspect, and then really big into like the decision that I made to create Omek, and it's like, and the journey that I embarked on were all triggered by those two key information.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining me on this episode. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm curious how you're going to edit and then put all this together. But yeah, it's like beautiful questions, man. I think your question really helped like dive really into some aspect like extremely important. So I hope this will be helpful for your listeners to like you really understand the concept of community, the concept of like togetherness, the concept of making an impact, the concept of serving order, the concept of professionalism, the concept of like creating the change we want to see, and how it's all possible, and how everybody can play their role and make much bigger impact than we can imagine. So
thanks a lot. I mean, the purpose of Impact Mindset is really a podcast for entrepreneurs and professionals, looking to sort of boost their impact and their business. And so what we do is we bring the best minds, we bring people like you, with your passion and your courage in the work that you do to inspire and encourage others to, find different paths to what they have been doing, and so we are looking at really uncovering the success mindset, to understand how people deal with the challenges that they have, entrepreneurs deal with the challenges that they have, and how they can overcome it. And I'd like to encourage everyone to the upcoming event on Saturday, 21st November, right?
Yes.
African Diaspora Summit.
Yes, African Diaspora Summit is coming Saturday, November 21st. This is actually our second annual summit. So every year we're going to have this annual summit. So we did it last year. It was African Diaspora Collaboration Summit, because we do want to address the idea of collaboration. And so this year we're doing it, but it's going to be 2 parts. The first part is going to be November 21st, where we can talk about our bicultural identity. What does that mean, and how does that manifest, and how that inform who we are, our success, our failures, us as a people, from all angles, from all industry. It's going to be amazing. We come in, bring in leaders, change maker, thought leaders in the community, organization, networks from the whole Europe, the first one. And the second one, part 2, would be February 2021. And it's going to be global. We're going all 6 continents, networks, organization, individual from like all continents that have this conversation about African diaspora global collaboration. So yeah, it's happening. Put on your calendar if you're listening to this, November 21st. Go on Omek or myomek.com. Check out our website, myomek.com, and then you can find more information there about the summit. But yeah, come be part of the movement.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And that's definitely how people can connect with you online. Go directly to your website, and they'll find all the information. I will be there Saturday, 21st November for the summit. I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
And for you, this might be late, but tomorrow we're doing one of our signature event under the Baobab.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So where we kind of talk about cultural, who we are, and then like the safe space where we talk about that. So if you're available tomorrow, you can join us for the Under the Baobab program.
Great. Thanks a lot. We'll definitely check that out.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. I definitely enjoy it, and we'll definitely have details on Omek and other projects you are working on as well. The contact details will be available on the episode page on Impact Mindsets. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bruno. All right.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Impact Mindset, where we build a community of relentless entrepreneurs. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay informed and visit our website on impactmindset.com, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram at FunBruno15, on Twitter and LinkedIn at FunBruno. If you are interested in private coaching and courses on startup strategy, ideation and concept development, contact me via podcast at impactmindset.com or visit my website at funbruno.com.